Um, if you were designing like a master blueprint to build an enduring holy nation, you probably wouldn't start with, well, you wouldn't start with a wedding night deception, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, or an unloved wife, or just decades of this bitter, escalating sibling rivalry. I mean, usually when we look at ancient historical texts, there's this expectation of, I don't know, pristine, almost mythological perfection.
Right, like these flawless marble statues.
Exactly. You see a list of founding patriarchs, and it's presented as this clean, unbroken lineage. But then you step into the world of ancient biblical genealogy for our deep dive today, and suddenly that marble statue just completely shatters.
It really does. It's so messy.
It is. We are looking at a historical and spiritual landscape that is born out of absolute human messiness.
Yeah, it is honestly the ultimate complicated family dynamic. I mean, we're tracing the 12 names of the tribes of Israel from the very beginning of Genesis all the way to the apocalyptic visions of Revelation. And it reveals this profound story.
Yeah.
It's a narrative driven by rivalry, geopolitical fracture, and this is key, unseen women whose desperate prayers literally became the foundation of a nation.
Yeah, let's talk about those women, because the origin story of the 12 tribes kicks off with a marriage that nobody actually wanted.
Yeah, total disaster.
Right. You have Jacob, who works 7 years to marry the woman he actually loves, Rachel. But thanks to this massive bait and switch by his father-in-law, Laban, Jacob wakes up married to Rachel's older sister, Leah.
A brutal morning, I'm sure.
Right. And Leah is not his choice. She knows it. And every single name of the first sons born to her serves as this real-time record of a woman just trying to secure her position. Because in that society, a wife's only leverage, like her only social safety net, was producing male heirs.
Yeah, that ancient socioeconomic reality is so crucial to understand here. I mean, without her husband's favor, Leah has zero political power in the camp.
None at all.
None. Her sons are essentially her pension plan. So her firstborn is Reuben. And the name comes from Hebrew roots meaning to see and a son.
Wow, literally see a son.
Exactly. Genesis records her saying, you know, the Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me. So the very first tribe of Israel is named after a woman's desperate calculation that a son will finally buy her husband's affection.
But the thing is, even after that first son, the desperation doesn't fade, right?
Not at all.
By the second child, Simeon, which comes from a root meaning to hear, she says, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also.
Yeah.
So you have God sees and God hears. She's still hyper-focused on her status as the unloved wife.
She's totally stuck there.
Right. Then comes the third son, Levi, which means to be joined or attached. She's really hoping this child will be the physical glue between her and Jacob.
Yeah.
And this is where the historical irony really jumps out to me.
Oh, the irony with Levi is massive.
Yeah, because Leah wanted her husband attached to her, but instead Levi's descendants become the priestly tribe. Like, they are the ones who eventually serve in the tabernacle and carry the Ark of the Covenant.
All right, they become attached to the divine rather than the patriarch.
Exactly. It's such a pivot.
And the narrative takes another profound shift with her fourth son, Judah. The name means to praise. Leah declares, this time I will praise the Lord. And then she actually stops bearing children for a time.
Wow.
She just stops spending her emotional currency trying to purchase Jacob's validation, you know. She shifts entirely to gratitude.
And that pivot changes the entire course of history. I mean, it is out of Judah, the exact moment Leah stopped begging for love, that the royal line descends.
Yep, the whole royal dynasty.
King David comes from Judah. Centuries later, Jesus is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The ultimate kingly figure in this text descends from the tribe of the woman the world completely overlooked.
It's amazing. Meanwhile, though, Rachel, the favored wife, is entirely unable to conceive.
Right, the sisterly rivalry flares up.
Oh, it triggers an ancient surrogate arms race. Rachel gives her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob to bear children on her behalf. And, of course, not to be outdone, Leah responds by giving her maidservant Zilpah to Jacob.
Naturally.
Right. So the roster of children expands rapidly through these proxy rivalries.
Yeah, and through Zilpah, we get Gad, meaning fortune or a troop comes, and they become these fierce warriors.
Yep.
Then comes Asher, meaning happy or blessed, whose territory later produced incredibly fertile soil. And actually, centuries down the line, Anna the prophetess emerges from the tribe of Asher to recognize the infant Jesus in the temple.
Oh, that's such a beautiful connection.
Right, the tribe of happiness producing a woman whose lifelong wait finally ends in joy. And then, through Rachel's maidservant Bilhah, we get Naphtali, which means wrestling. And that's born out of the direct competition between the sisters.
Literally wrestling with her sister.
Yeah. And Naphtali eventually settles in the region of Galilee, which, if you follow the historical timeline, is exactly where Jesus later launches his public ministry.
There's a really deep poetry there. I mean, the tribe born from a bitter wrestling match becomes the geographic region where the light of the world first appears publicly, stepping into essentially the ultimate wrestling match between light and darkness.
Wow. Yeah. But wait, I was looking closely at the translation for Bilhah's other son, Dan.
Ah, Dan, here we go.
Right, so the name means justice, or to judge. Rachel even says, God has judged my case. But when you flip a few pages over to Jacob's deathbed, he gives these prophecies over his sons, and he calls Dan a venomous viper by the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward.
Yeah, quite a tonal shift.
That completely threw me. How does a name meaning justice devolve into a metaphor about a literal snake in the grass?
Well, it points to the dark trajectory of the tribe, honestly. Dan did produce Samson, one of Israel's most famous judges.
Right.
But the tribe quickly went rogue. They became the first to systemically embrace idolatry. The Book of Judges records the Danites actually setting up their own unauthorized priesthood.
Just totally doing their own thing.
Completely. But the viper metaphor really solidifies centuries later during the reign of King Jeroboam. So when the nation splits, Jeroboam takes control of the north. And he is terrified, absolutely terrified, that if his citizens travel south to Jerusalem to worship at the temple, they might defect back to the southern king.
Oh, so it's a geopolitical border crisis.
Yes, exactly.
He needs a way to keep his people geographically locked in.
Exactly. So Jeroboam sets up 2 golden calves as basically state-sponsored religious propaganda. And he places one of them strategically in the territory of Dan, right at the far northern border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Dan became the velvet rope keeping people away from Jerusalem. They introduced a spiritual poison into the nation, biting the heel of the passing rider, just as Jacob prophesied.
That is wild. The tribe named Judge became the border patrol for idolatry.
Precisely.
Okay, so Dan goes rogue. Meanwhile, Rachel finally enters the narrative directly, right? Like after years of watching her sister, she conceives and gives birth to Joseph. Yeah, whose name means may he add. He is the son of the long wait, and his life spans 14 chapters of Genesis. I mean, he's sold into slavery, imprisoned, and then elevated to the second most powerful man in Egypt.
A huge narrative arc.
Huge. But Rachel's story ends in pure tragedy with her second son.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. She dies in childbirth on the side of the road, and as her soul is departing, she names her final son Benoni, which translates to son of my sorrow.
Just crushing.
But Jacob immediately intervenes and renames him Benjamin, meaning son of my right hand.
Think about the psychological weight of that rename for a second.
Massive.
One child, 2 wildly different identities. One spoken in a dying breath of immense grief, and the other spoken by a father choosing an identity of life and authority over an identity of sorrow.
And Benjamin's legacy really lives up to that authority. Jacob prophesies he will be a ravenous wolf. I mean, this is the tribe that produces Israel's first king, Saul.
Oh.
And then in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul proudly identifies himself as a Hebrew of Hebrews from the tribe of Benjamin. So the son of sorrow really became the son of the right hand.
That is fascinating. But okay, this brings up a mechanical issue in the text that confuses a lot of people when they look at the source material.
Oh, the tribal map.
The tribal map. Because if you actually count the names listed across different chapters, sometimes Joseph is there, sometimes he isn't.
It drives people crazy.
It does. So the best way I've found to understand this is to think of a sports team roster. Like you have a game that requires exactly 12 players on the field at all times, right? The number 12 represents complete administrative perfection. It never changes. But the specific players rotate depending on the context of the game.
That's a great way to put it. And that roster shift actually starts before Jacob dies. He adopts Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim, meaning fruitful, and Manasseh, meaning to forget.
Right.
So by adopting them, Jacob gives Joseph a double portion of the inheritance. Ephraim and Manasseh each get the status of a full tribe.
So sometimes Joseph sits out and his 2 sons take the field.
Exactly.
And other times, the tribe of Levi is pulled off the field to serve as the referees, the priests who don't get a land inheritance. So another slot opens up and the 2 sons step in to keep the number at exactly 12.
Yeah, the roster just flexes depending on whether the text is listing military censuses, land allotments, or spiritual inheritance.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
But, while we are looking at the full family roster, we really have to acknowledge Leah's daughter, Dinah.
Yes, her story is intense.
It is. Her name means judgment,
Mhm.
and she isn't counted among the 12 landholding tribes, but her story in Genesis 34 involves a brutal assault and a subsequent massacre carried out by her brothers, Simeon and Levi.
Right, it's incredibly dark.
It's a stark reminder that this family history isn't a sanitized highlight reel. God is building a nation out of deep, devastating trauma and incredibly broken pieces.
Yeah, and that trauma really echoes because the family multiplies into a massive nation, they escape Egypt, and they conquer the Promised Land. But that family dysfunction from the tents of Genesis, it doesn't disappear, it just scales up.
Oh, it scales up tremendously.
We go from siblings fighting over a father's blessing to a full-blown geopolitical civil war. Around 930 BC, the kingdom fractures in two.
Yeah, and the fault lines of that fracture were laid centuries earlier.
Yeah.
King Solomon initiates these massive building projects sustained by heavy taxation and forced labor.
Right.
So when his son Rehoboam takes the throne, the people plead for relief. But Rehoboam arrogantly doubles down, threatening even heavier burdens. So 10 of the 12 tribes say they've had enough and they secede, forming the northern kingdom, keeping the name Israel.
And who leads that northern secession? The tribe of Ephraim, Jesse's son, Rachel's grandson.
Yep.
And who remains ruling the southern kingdom? The line of David, the tribe of Judah, Leah's son.
It all comes back to the sisters.
It's mind-blowing. That bitter sisterly rivalry between Leah and Rachel over who Jacob loved more evolved over hundreds of years into a heavily militarized national border dispute.
It's incredible to see it zoom out like that. And the northern kingdom, led by Ephraim and spiritually poisoned by those golden calves in Dan, completely spirals.
Right.
By 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire swoops in, decimates the north, and deports the population. They scatter across the empire, becoming the infamous 10 lost tribes.
Just gone.
Gone. Meanwhile, the southern kingdom, primarily Judah and Benjamin, along with some Levite refugees fleeing the northern idolatry, they survive longer. They eventually fall to the Babylonian Empire, and Jerusalem is destroyed.
But the key difference there is that the southern kingdom returns from exile after 70 years to rebuild. And because the primary surviving tribe was Judah, the returning people became known as Jews.
Exactly.
The entire modern identity of the surviving nation traces straight back to Leah's fourth son, the tribe of praise.
It really is a profound legacy. And, even with the kingdom divided, tribes exiled, and the bloodline scattered, the concept of the 12 tribes remains the central architectural blueprint of the biblical vision.
Yes.
You see this most vividly in the book of Exodus, with the garments of the high priest, specifically the Hashan, the breastplate of judgment.
Okay, I want everyone listening to put themselves in the high priest's shoes for a second. Imagine the physical and spiritual weight of this garment, right?
It's heavy.
Very heavy. Whenever you enter the Holy of Holies to approach God, you wear a breastplate set with 12 precious stones, arranged in 4 rows of 3. Each stone is engraved with the name of one of the 12 tribes. So you know the history. You know about the deceit, the idolatry of Dan, the arrogance of Ephraim, the violence of Simeon and Levi.
You know all the dirty laundry.
Exactly. And yet, you are commanded to carry this fractured, feuding family directly over your heart. Not on your back as a burden, but right against your chest as you approach the divine.
It is a stunning picture of mediation. And the stones themselves are deeply significant. I mean, they were all different: onyx, emerald, sapphire, amethyst.
So they weren't just uniform.
Right. God didn't ask for 12 identical diamonds. He didn't want 12 copies of Judah or 12 copies of Levi. He wanted fighters, thinkers, worshipers, and administrators.
I love that.
The breastplate really illustrates that unity, at least in this context, does not mean uniformity. Unity requires distinct, diverse expressions held together by a shared framework.
Which perfectly brings us to the grand finale of this timeline, zooming all the way to the apocalyptic visions in the book of Revelation. Because the tribes show up here in a way that completely flips the script again.
Oh, absolutely.
In Revelation chapter 7, there is a vision of 144,000 sealed servants of God, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. But the sports roster has shifted in a massive way. Levi is back in the mix.
Yeah. For centuries, Levi was separated out. There were the priests. The people had to go through them to reach God.
Right.
But in Revelation, Levi is just one of the 12 again. The dividing wall between the priesthood and the common people is utterly obliterated. It reflects the theological shift found in 1 Peter, which declares that all believers are now a royal priesthood.
Oh, so the original Edenic vision where everyone has direct, unmediated access to the divine is fully restored.
Fully restored.
But, and this is a huge, but there is a glaring omission in that chapter 7 list. Dan is completely missing.
He is absent.
The tribe that set up the fake priesthood and guarded the golden calves is just gone from the 144,000. It reads like a disgraced family member being completely written out of the ultimate will because they led the family astray. I mean, is that just it for Dan? Are they eternally deleted from the culmination of history?
Well, if you stopped reading at chapter 7, you would absolutely think so.
Right.
But there is a phenomenal twist. If you cross-reference the final chapters of Revelation with the prophecies of Ezekiel 48, you get the final vision of the eternal city, the New Jerusalem. It has a massive high wall with 12 gates. Those 12 gates represent the 12 tribes of Israel, fused structurally with 12 foundations representing the apostles.
Wow, so the Old and New Testaments are locked together into one eternal architecture.
Exactly. And on those gates, facing north, south, east, and west, are the names of the tribes. According to Ezekiel's highly detailed vision of this exact city, Dan is back.
Dan is back.
Dan has a gate. Whatever that exclusion in Revelation 7 meant, it was a temporary discipline. It was not the final word. The disgraced son still has a door into the eternal city, with his name carved right into it.
That is unbelievable. It just shows that the 12 tribes are not a story of pristine saints. This was a family torn apart, scattered by massive empires, burned and exiled.
Yeah.
Yet, in the final vision of the text, every single name is accounted for and permanently carved into the gates of the ultimate city.
It's beautiful. And if you take the translated meanings of those 12 tribal names and you read them in sequence, they actually form a complete, beautiful prayer that arcs over thousands of years of this messy history.
Wait, really? How does it read?
It translates roughly to this: God sees, God hears, he draws us close, and our response is praise. He brings justice through our struggles, fortune and happiness to those who wait, reward and honor to those who trust, and in the end, he adds what was missing and seats us at his right hand.
Wow. From the desperate, quiet cries of an unloved woman in a tent to a prophetic prayer that spans empires.
Exactly.
And there is one final mind-bending historical enigma here for you to chew on today. Because when Ezekiel lists the renewed tribal land allotments in that final apocalyptic vision we just talked about, Dan doesn't just get a gate.
Right.
Ezekiel 48 lists Dan as the very first tribe to receive an allotment in the north. Like, the tribe of the venomous viper, the tribe completely written out of the 144,000, isn't just allowed back into the city, they're given the very first inheritance.
It's such a wild picture of grace.
It is. How a text navigates justice, exile, and ultimate restoration is a thread you could pull on for a lifetime. So, look at your own messy life, your own complex family history, and wonder, what kind of beautiful, enduring narrative might your own mess be spelling out when viewed from a zoomed-out generational perspective?